Good morning. My name is Doreen Asabea Tham, and today we are looking at the topic Governing for Success, why corporate governance and accountability matter for every business leader. So I ask, why do even the biggest companies fail? We know Aaron, we know Wirecard, they were global giants. Yes, they collapsed. Why? Was it a bad product? No. They collapsed due to weight of fraud, weak oversight, and poor governance. What was the result? This resulted in a loss of billions of dollars and, most importantly, the public trust. So you see, corporate governance now is not just a compliance, it's a strategic necessity. What are we covering in this presentation? In this presentation, we'll define what corporate governance is, we'll examine the global governance systems, we'll analyze the role of the board and then accountability mechanisms, we'll draw lessons from the major corporate failures and conclude with practical implications for managers. So before we define what corporate governance is, why does it even matter? Why is it important? An effective corporate governance and accountability enhances stakeholder confidence. It promotes investor confidence and capital attraction. It mitigates operational and financial risk. It supports long-term organizational sustainability. So corporate governance should be understood not merely as a regulatory requirement, but as a strategic mechanism for achieving sustainable organizational performance. There are many definitions to corporate governance. We have the OECD definition, but in simple terms, corporate governance is the system by which companies are directed and controlled, providing a framework that aligns management with shareholders and stakeholders while promoting accountability, transparency, and long-term sustainability. So there's a problem. What is this problem? The central governance challenge arising from the separation of ownership and control is the principal agent problem, which corporate governance mechanisms are designed to address. Aaron and Wirecard illustrate how the separation of ownerships and control allowed managers to pursue self-interested behavior, while weak boards, audits, and incentive structures fail to align managerial actions with shareholder interests. So there are different governance systems around the world. We have the Anglo-American, the Asian, the Japanese, and then the emerging model. In this slide, we'll look at how each of them differ internationally. In the Anglo-American model, used in the United States and the United Kingdom, governance is strongly shareholder-focused and firm performance driven by shareholder value maximization. Whereas the European model, particularly in Germany, adopts a stakeholder orientation supported by two-tier boards, which strengthens oversight and encourages long-term risk management. The Japanese model, or the Asian model, is a relationship-based, emphasizing on long-term corporate ties and stability rather than short-term returns. And in the emerging markets, such as China and Brazil, governance is shaped by concentrated ownership, often by families or the state, which can enhance control but raises accountability and minority shareholder protection concerns. What is the role of the board? What are their duties? So, the board plays a very critical governance role. What do? They provide strategic oversight, appointing and monitoring the CEO, and overseeing risk management and internal controls. It is the board's responsibility to ensure the integrity of financial reporting and increasingly for ESG and sustainability oversight. Through these functions, the board serves as the primary mechanism for holding management accountable and protecting long-term firm value. Companies are controlled. How? They are controlled in two ways, internally and externally. We have the internal and external control mechanisms that are used to control these companies. Internally, governance relies on internal controls such as the audits, the ethics and compliance programs to monitor managerial behavior and manage risks. Externally, accountability is reinforced through regulatory supervision. That's why we have the regulatory boards, independent external audits, and scrutiny from the media and civil society. Together, all these mechanisms are designed to reduce information asymmetry, constrain managerial opportunism, and protect shareholder and stakeholders. When accountability mechanisms fail, governance collapses, just as we see in the case of Aaron and Wirecard. So the collapse of Aaron and Wirecard demonstrates how governance failures can escalate into full corporate collapse. In these two cases, both boards failed to exercise effective oversight. Dominant executives were insufficiently challenged, and the risk management systems were weak. Financial reporting was deliberately misleading, while auditors and regulators failed to detect or challenge irregularities in a timely manner. The consequences included severe investor losses, widespread job destruction, and major regulatory reforms. These cases show that governance failure is rarely due to a single weakness, but rather a breakdown across multiple accountability mechanisms. Against this background, the next slide would examine the contemporary governance challenges facing modern boards. So beyond the traditional oversights, new boards now faces new and complex challenges. Boards must now respond to ESG and climate risk, cybersecurity threats, executive pay concerns, diversity expectations, and responsible supply chain issues that redefine governance as a strategic and forward-looking responsibility. So, what must we do as business leaders? We have a clear example from Aaron and Wirecard. They provide us with practical example. Their failures give us a clear practical implication for us as business leaders. 1. Board must strengthen oversight and maintain independence to effectively challenge management. Executive must promote an ethical culture and reinforce robust internal controls. Investors also play a role by engaging actively and holding boards accountable. And finally, management at all levels must understand governance requirements and comply with controls and reporting systems. Altogether, these actions help prevent governance failures and support sustainable organizational performance. So what are we taking away from this presentation? To summarize everything, corporate governance, it's not simply about regulatory compliance. You're understanding this from this presentation, but a strategic framework that underpins accountability and long-term performance. Where governance is strong, trust is built. Where it is weak, firms are exposed to collapse. Thank you very much for making the time to watch and listen to this presentation. What is our call to action as leaders? Governance is the responsibility of every leader. Prioritizing accountability is essential to building sustainable and resilient organizations. Thank you very much.